Good to be in God's house to celebrate all that God is doing and shall do. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. Jerron, you know my voice is low, so I need you to give me. Nothing's changed. I'm honored to be here. I believe God has given a specific word for this particular occasion. I like to always consider what it is that God is saying for a particular time. You can speak a whole lot of sermons that you've preached before, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what God is saying for that particular place or occasion. One of my pet peeves is hearing a guest speaker go to an anniversary celebration and they preach something and you sit there thinking, were you not aware it was an anniversary celebration? Thankful for the fact that we can come to, it just kind of tripped me out driving here. I was like, wow, this is a real place. It's a real space where people gather and worship. I love a talkback church. That's what I'm talking about. Might adopt. You got a Mike Tellis here too. I love it. At the West Campus, we have a guy, Mike Tellis. If you preaching good, he gonna run up to the stage, slap it. He gonna talk the whole time you preaching. He can talk more than you. I am honored to be here. I'm fascinated that my kids get to see something different, and I'm honored my wife was able to come and bring all of our babies down here and see what God can do with our yes. Equally excited, of course, see so many from the West, but Melvin and Penny. Melvin is one of the guys that was with our church when we first started, and I was 23. I remember Melvin telling me, he said, if you ever start a church, I'm coming. And I thought, he lying. And he been there ever since. Him and his wife, Penny, they have been there ever since. And I'm so thankful. I call him Grandpa now. To the outings, they're just God's people. Not just good people, they're just God's people. And every pastor needs a pastor you can just call and vent to and just have conversation. The other day he came to me and said, I want to tell you something. I think my season is up. I've never cussed in my life. I felt it rising up the side of my soul. He said, I'm just joking with you. I said, that's not a funny joke. I didn't find that funny at all. To Manaj, our finance guy who came, I love you so much. Appreciate you so much for coming worshiping with us. Manaj, when I saw him, I thought I forgot to give him a receipt or something. I was like, man, he came to church just to get the receipt from me. But so many to call. Josh, my high school friend, classmate. He was a year ahead of us, and Sister Jenny. I do want to honor your leads. I think that Dr. Felicia was the first doctor I believe we had at our church. And you may not recognize, but there is a law of exposure. And when people see possibility, they go after it because they've seen it. And I always tell people, our first doctor in our church opened the pathways for people to know it's possible to get it. And, you know, just classy, wow, that's, all right. And your honorable pastor, you see Pastor 305, and your honorable pastor, Pastor Mike has served at our church, I don't know how many years, it's been a long time at this point, it's over 10. I don't recall a time where everything you put in his care, he always stewards like it's mine. Now, there's a difference. People, when you put things in their care, they steward it like it's theirs. from administration to helping with the sound and just, I mean, he's done everything in the church. Some days I just feel bad. I know he's doing it unto the Lord, but I'm like, he's always there. Like he's just always, I try to figure out in my mind, how do you find the time to do some of these things? My son, he always talked about being in construction. I always used to tell him, like, you will always have a job as long as you know Michael Young. You'll be fine. You could be in construction all your life. But I want to thank God for Joel. So good to see Joel here doing his thing, always with nice sneakers, always. He takes that scripture literally. How beautiful are the feet, those who preach the gospel. All right, I want to read 1 Samuel 22. I believe this is a prophetic word for you. I think it's tailored for you. I think it's going to be impactful for you. 1 Samuel chapter number 22. I'm surprised I don't see my father. He's an honorary member. He asks about Pastor Mike every single week. Why don't you just call him yourself and ask him how he's doing? He said he was going to be here, but my parents are real traditional. They got to go to their church first. There's no such thing as skipping their church to go to another church. I'm like, well, you're still getting God in both places. But 1 Samuel chapter number 22, verse 1 through 5. 1 Samuel chapter number 22. I'd like you to stand out of respect to God's word. I'm going to give you a second to get there. When you're there, say amen. It reads as such. David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and his father's household heard about it, they went down to him. All those, very important, all those who were in distress, who were in debt, who were discontented, gathered around him, and he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. From there, David went to Mizpah in Moab and said to King Moab, would you let my father and mother come and stay with you until I learn what God will do for me? So he left them with the king of Moab, and they stayed with him as long as David was in the stronghold. But the prophet Gad said to David, do not stay in the stronghold. Go into the land of Judah. So David left and went to the forest of Hereth. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. Father, I pray that you bring life to this passage, that your hearers will be blessed by the reading and the teaching of thine word. To our online family, I want you to write the title of this message. If you're watching us, put it in the chat section. I want to talk about, from a small topic of time, this is Adullam. This is Adullam. If one would consider 3 years, it's a big deal. But interestingly, the first year to launch is vital to the life of any church. The first year is vital to the future of a church. But this church, unique to itself, was met with a pandemic for 2 of the 3 years, which would almost cripple any organization. Dealing with various transitions due to crises, which bleeds into their church assembling. If you are one who inclined to study numerology, you will see that the number 3 is one of witness. The Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Jesus died on the 3rd day and resurrected. We find the number 3 scattered and littered throughout Scripture as having some sense of significance. Even in the Old Testament, what would happen was when a baby was born, the king put a decree to kill any child under the age of 2. Because there's something pivotal about getting to 3. The king spent so much time ensuring any baby that had the potential, that had a seed of opportunity, would make sure that that baby was killed before it got to 3. I honestly can say I'm amazed that God has graced this place to survive to 3 years. This text shows the hand of God and the hand God deals with us when he asks us to build. David is in a war. Saul, his former leader, has put a hit out on him, and he knows that Saul wants to kill him. You know, if you don't know it, there is an assignment on your life and after your life. So there's an assignment on your life, and then there's an assignment after your life. Let me back up and say it again. There's an assignment on your life, and then there's an assignment after your life. Let me break it down. God puts an assignment on your life, but Satan puts an assignment after your life, because he wants to destroy what's on it. And if you don't value what's on it, you'll chase what's after you. And most people have given up their assignment because they can't see that God is doing something with them. Gath is an interesting place. Every place Scripture lets us lean into, there's an interesting correlation. Gath was a place where giants were born. Y'all know Goliath was one from Gath. Gath is also interesting because it was a holding place for the Ark of the Covenant. When the Ark of the Covenant was being moved, they left it in Gath at Obed-Edom's house. So it's interesting that you find this is a place of giants, and it's also a place where you see the presence of God, which there is a correlation that sometimes the only way that we see the presence of God is when we got to face giants we can't face on our own. So maybe the giants that you are facing are a correlation that God is there, and the giant is just an announcement that God is present. And a lot of us are cursing our giant, not recognizing the giant is an introduction that God's presence is here. It is interesting to know that smooth seas do not make skillful sailors. You don't become a great sailor through smooth seas. You need a little bit of turbulence to learn how to become a skillful sailor. And you don't become a good church without turbulence. Turbulence makes a strong church. And maybe we were praying that God make us stronger. No, God didn't cause the pandemic, but God can certainly use it to make you stronger. And even though the waves seem like they don't want to stop, the waves are giving us the ability and the fortitude to not quit in environments that are not favorable to us. So, but God calls David to lead. But it's interesting that if I was a coach, if I'm setting up a team, I'm going to set up a team that's pretty good. But that's not how God works. If I'm a basketball coach, anybody that's basketball, I'm going to choose probably Steph Curry, LeBron James, John Morant, Kevin. No, he didn't show up. So I'm going to pick a team that's solid. But when God picks a team, He gives you an unfavorable team so that you can train the team to be what he showed you. Okay. God shows you the championship. But when he assembles the team don't even know how to dribble. Some of you, when we said Kevin Durant, you're like, what? I've never heard of that pastor before. He's pastoring still? Like, you had no idea. So the reality is this. God, when he puts together a team, he doesn't pick the team that you want. He picks the team that needs you. Y'all ain't talking to me. I'm coming. He picks the team that needs you. Now, David went to the cave not for a team. David went into the cave for himself. He was running from something that was after his life, but the cave did not stop what was on his life. And when he decides that he's going to do what God has put on his life, he's got to deal with some things that are coming after his life. And he says, before I handle this assignment, let me go take care of my parents. He puts his parents in position so that he can focus on his assignment. Y'all ain't talking to me. He considers, even though he's in a cave, he's considering honoring somebody else. Even though he's hiding, he's looking out for the well-being of somebody else to ensure that his parents are well. And he takes them to the king and says, can they stay with you? And God lets David go into the cave. When he's in the cave, God gives him some teammates. He gives him some interesting teammates. He brought together people that had debt, distress, and were discontent. Now, God, I got a question. If I'm hiding because I'm having a bad season, why would you give me people who need encouragement when I'm discouraged? I'm sitting in my cave and you bring me people that were in debt. And debt in those times was the worst because the interest rate was so high that as you get a high loan, it doesn't just affect you, it can also jeopardize your children. See, we got bills today and we can just ignore them. But in that day, if you ignored my bills, I could take your children. So these people were running because they were in debt and they were in fear that our kids could be taken because the country had taxed them so much that they decided to hide in a... Isn't it interesting, though, that when people run into hard times, they don't run to church, they run to caves? So I didn't say this is Kingdom Church Kissimmee. I said this is Adullam. Because maybe all y'all are debt free, but God called people that were in debt to a leader. They didn't bring their asset and balance sheet, they brought their debt. All right, God, I can kind of vibe with you. You gave me people in debt, everybody in debt, you know, that's cool. They're in debt. I can work with that. But then you brought people that were in distress. They were inwardly impoverished and inwardly harassed. And people who are in distress make their stress your stress. Because that's what they do. They don't know how to manage their stress on their own. The way that they manage their stress is by giving you their stress and making you stressed out, because if you're not stressed out, something is wrong with you, because if their life is always a life of stress, then it is abnormal to see someone who doesn't have stress. There's nothing worse than dealing with people who are in distress, because when people who are in distress, you ever see these jeans now with rips in them, and what do they call them? They call them distressed jeans. They look like they've been through some things. That's the new fashion now. They look like they've been through some stuff, and they call them distressed jeans. That's the new style that's in. They're distressed because they've been through a whole lot of things, and God says, the type of team I'm going to bring you is one that has a bunch of debt. And then I'm going to bring you a team that's distressed, that's been through a whole lot of stuff. But then I'm not just going to give you a team full of debt and a team full of distress. I'm also going to be kind enough to give you a team that's discontented. Can you imagine having a staff meeting with all of them? You got discontented people. They're serving these people were serving in a kingdom that more and more was becoming oppressive and stifling to the people. King Saul no longer was there to serve, but to be served. And the welfare and the well-being of the people was not the goal, but the well-being of his comfort was the goal. You can relate to that. You ever work and it just seems like they pay you just enough to be poor? Or they pay you just enough to need them? Pay you just enough to feel like you will always have to have them in the center of your life? And they're sitting there thinking to themselves, our lives are really bad. But since our lives are bad, let's interrupt somebody else's life and ask them to lead us. So David is trying for his life. He's got a leader. Now, y'all probably don't realize how deeply hurtful this is. He's got a leader that he admired. You ever see somebody you're like, I want you to mentor me? And Saul says, yeah, I'll take you on, I'll mentor you. And all of a sudden, Saul starts looking at David and saying, you think you're better than me? And he's like, no, I just want to be like you. And Saul's like, no, you're trying to take my position. So every single thing that David does, Saul is now trying to kill him. Can you imagine? Someone that was a mentor is now a tormentor. Someone that you used to write notes on and follow their path and follow their writings, now all of a sudden are threatened by you because you're you. They're threatened by not just you, but what's on you. And because they're threatened by what's on you, they send things after you. And David says, you know what, because I honor you so much, I'm not going to fight you. I'm just going to go in a cave where I can protect my mind from what I feel. And he sits in the cave, and if you know anything about being in a cave, your voice starts to echo. Your thoughts start to be louder than what you feel. If the thing about sitting in a cave long enough is if you sit in a cave long enough, you'll start to believe what's happening in the cave. My life is bad, 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 bad. I'm in debt. My family, my kids may be offered up because of my taxes. I'm in distress. I'm in bad shape. And he hides in the cave because he's running from Saul, but he's in a cave trying to figure out, the text says, what God is going to do next. What do you do when God makes you park in a place that doesn't look like what he said? He's parked in this cave, and he's sitting there knowing that God has a plan, but what's after me seems greater than what's on me. It seems like attack is coming after attack after attack after attack after attack after attack. And to make it worse, I got debt, I got distress, and I'm discontent. And I'm just sitting there trying to gather my emotions and trying to figure out how am I going to make it out. And all of a sudden I see a bunch of people coming around me. And I'm like, what do y'all want? We know that you going through, David. But we need you to lead us. Lead y'all where? Wherever you want to take us. So David's like, okay, I'm about to fight a war and I don't have an army. We'll be your army. But y'all ain't skilled. You don't have javelins. You don't have weapons. You know, it's kind of like the people in Ukraine, they're waiting on countries to send them weapons, because as long as the countries don't send them weapons, they're going to get slaughtered. So they're sitting there in a cave and they say, well, we don't have anything, but at your word, David, we will buy into whatever you say, and we will risk our lives to follow the vision that you're giving us. And even though it's inconvenient, we'll trust that you're going to take our debt, you're going to take our discontentment, you're going to take our sadness, and you're not going to judge us. You're going to accept us for who we are. You know we're not the best. You know we're not the most talented, but you're going to stand up every week and encourage us like we can take over the world. And you're going to stand every week and make us feel like that we are not going to lose everything that we have. And David gets up and he says, all right, you in debt. You're discontented, you're in distress. But when you lead people who are in debt, discontent, and in distress, they don't fully trust you. Because they're so used to getting harmed that authentic love doesn't feel real. And they fight love. They resist love. They even run away from love. And you're like, how in the world? I hugged them when they showed up. I cared for them when they came. And because they don't know what real love is, they repel against it because they're so used to being in distress, discontent, and indebted. And can you imagine David trying to love these people and they keep harming him? Because sometimes the only way to help someone who's drowning is you got to knock them out. Because if you don't knock someone out who's drowning, they'll make you drown. They're going to fight you when you're trying to save them. And can you imagine leading a group of people who are dead, discontented, and distressed? Every time you go to save them, every time you go to direct them, every time you go to lead them, they're fighting you, not recognizing you're stopping me from helping you live because you think my help is hurt. David is leading this group of people, and he's got to be a great leader, because only a great leader can get people to buy into going to war with no skill. He casts a vision so beautiful. Now, they're not sitting in a beautiful cathedral. They're in a cave. They're coming to a cave that they got to set up the cave. They got to break down the cave. They got to move the cave. They got to hope it's working right. They got to make sure it's set like it was the last week. And they got to do what they got to do. And they got to come with debt and discontent. But they come to Adullam because they know when I come here, he makes me feel like I'm a warrior. He makes me feel like I'm a champion. He makes me feel like I can leap over a troop and leap over a wall. That's why I come. And he'll say things like, y'all all right? Y'all all right? And even though he got tears in his own eyes and he's taking care of his own father and taking care of his own mother, he's making sure that my army is good and they don't see the work that he does, but he's working over and over and over to make sure that your debt doesn't overwhelm you, your discontent doesn't take advantage of you, and being distressed doesn't make you crazy. He leads. He leads. what if I train this army and they leave? But then he realizes, what if I don't train them and they stay? So on one side, I train you, you get out of debt, you get out of being distressed, you get out of being discontent, and then you realize, I don't need you anymore. You stay in your cave because I've got exposed to something better. But he still every day got to train you for war, not knowing if the weapons that he taught you how to shoot, you'll one day use to shoot him. Let me say that one more time. This is how you use the bullet. This is how you break down the gun. This is how you put it all together. And one day, that person that you trained that was not a warrior, that was in debt, was in discontent, that was in distress, they will use that same weapon you taught them how to use and use it against you. Now notice what God does when he calls David. He doesn't excuse David from his own life. Because while you're leading the 400, you still got to deal with your own life. Can you imagine leading 400 discontent men, not recognizing the women and children, and you're still thinking about the well-being of your parents? But nobody wants to hear about you taking care of your parents, because I had to make sure my parents were good to take care of you. But David is in the cave and he's telling them, you know what, guys, we can't stay in this cave forever, because you don't grow in the cave. Caves are necessary, but the longer you stay in the cave, you don't grow in the cave. You don't become greater in the cave. So David has to give them a very elementary principle, but it's a significant principle. He tells them, we got to get out the cave and go to this place of Judah, but we got to get out the cave. And they're thinking to themselves, the cave is home. And David has to convince them, number one, that this is not permanent, it's training. No, we want to, no, you talking big now, you talking about us going somewhere else, and no, we want to stay in the cave. Even though we don't like it, we're familiar with the cave. It's safe, it's the best, we know the cave. We don't like it, but we know it. And David's like, no, this is not where we're going to park. This is where we're supposed to be prepared. Because God has a land for us. But if we settle in the cave, we'll never see the possibilities of what God can do if we give him a yes. So let me give you what I see in this text, and I'm gone. Verse number 5, he says, but the prophet, when God, listen to me clearly. When God can't get his word to you, he sends you a prophet. Some of us want a prophecy, and the reason why we want a prophecy is because we keep ignoring what we already heard. God sends him a prophet to tell him, your time of being here is expiring. I need you to get up and take your men with you that you trained. When you met them, they were strangers. But you trained them so well, now they're family. I want you to gather them. Those stragglers that when they came in, they didn't know how to tithe, and you taught them how to tithe. They didn't know anything about offering, and you taught them offering. They didn't know anything about worship, and you taught them worship. They didn't know anything about business, and you taught them business. They didn't know anything about mastering their craft, and you showed them how to master their craft, and you showed them how to lead by example, and you showed them how to put flags out when they didn't even know how to do it themselves. And you demonstrated before them. And even though they kept messing up, they still were learning. Even though they kept fumbling the ball, you still kept teaching them, because they're not skilled warriors, but you're making them skilled warriors, because God has given you an instruction to take the least of these, the oppressed of these, the left out and forgotten, and bring them to a place that they could never go without your voice. So I close with this thought. He says to him, go into the land of Judah. So David left the stronghold. Because strongholds are how we think. He says, go into the land of Judah. I want to give you a charge. God has a land for this place. Now, y'all need to say it like you believe, like God has a land for this church. No. I know you missed it. I got it. I'm gonna break it down like my man said. We're gonna that's my new word, make it plain. When I said God has a land for you, that means God has to give the people who are in debt the possibility to acquire it. So the way that God stimulates your economy is by stimulating His. And when His is stimulated, He makes ways in the desert for you. I know you don't believe that because you're kind of thinking, oh, whatever. I've seen God take a storefront church, and we believe God to bring us into a land, and people started getting raises out of nowhere. People started getting positions out of nowhere. Why? Because when God wants to graduate you, He sends a prophet to remind you of everything that David has been saying to you, but you didn't believe it, and God had to reconfirm His word. Some of you in 3 years, your life won't look like it did when you came to the cave. You started in a doula. You came indebted. You came distressed. You came discontented. But every time he started getting on that Zoom, every time he raised that high country voice, something in you said, you know what? I'm starting to believe him. I'm starting to believe that God has a plan for my life. I'm starting to believe that I'm more than able. I'm starting to believe that I can take this next leap. I don't have a father. He's a voice to my life that speaks courage, and I don't see how I'm going to make it. I don't like the correction. I don't like some of the things that he has, but he's training me, and he's training me to be better. Because the only way we get bigger is if I get better. Oh, God's training me so I can get better. I'm going to close again because I got 3 of them. So this is your 3rd year anniversary. I want us to do something that I think is important. I don't need anything. I just came to be a blessing to this place. You know, I started the passage off about the cave. And you know, when people go in a cave, that means they don't really talk much. I don't know if you know Pastor Mike very well. He's not a talker. You almost got to sit there and pull stuff out. Are you okay? Are you sure? Okay, tell me what yes means, what I'm fine means. What does that definition of I'm fine mean to you? How does that look like in your world? What does that educationally look like when you say you're fine? I want to know, what is that adverb? What does that adverb exactly mean to you? Because I'm not quite comprehending how you are, because he's a caveman. And cavemen don't talk. They don't tell you they're wounded. But one thing I've learned, break it down. I've learned that tears are the language of the unexpressed. That tears are the language of the unexpressed. Because most cavemen, it's not that they don't want to talk, they just don't know what to say. Because what they hear in their head just doesn't come articulated out their mouth. So they sit in their thoughts while they encourage you in your victory. This is Adullam. This is the place that we hear him talk the most. Y'all just missed what I just said. This is Adullam, where we hear him encourage us and speak to us, because any other time he's not speaking. And I want to encourage this leader for the next season. I want to give you this charge. I want you to have enough faith to start putting your resources aside for what's next for you. Listen to what I'm saying. Don't wait for a building to start looking for one. When you don't believe, God sends a prophet to reconfirm the word. So we're going to start putting money aside. What y'all raising money for? A building fund? Not one of them churches that raised building fund for years. We've been a part of TKC. We don't do none of that. Never. But we need to start positioning ourselves, because we hear the word of the Lord that you're going to Judah. No, you're going to Judah. No. You're going. This is Adullam right here, but you're going to Judah. We're not going to park here forever. We're going to Judah. Now you need to look at your neighbor. I know COVID season a little gone. Look at him and say, I'm going to Judah. Now I don't know if you're going to Judah, but I'm going to Judah. And we're not going to stay in Adullam forever. We're going to start preparing and start changing our language that we're in Judah. We're in Judah. This week may be our last week, y'all. Next week may be our last week, y'all. Because we're preparing, because God has seen our indebtedness. He's seen our distress, and he's shaking us up for what is next. He's shaking us up because he's going to get you out of debt by stretching you into what he's doing. And by the time it's over, you're going to have skills. You're going to know how to shoot weaponry. You're going to know how to shoot armory. Why? Because God has trained you. You're going to start saying things that you never thought. You're going to start leading in ways. And all of a sudden, all of that training is going to start hitting your heart. It's going to all start making sense. Now, all of a sudden, when you say, Pastor Mike, I need your help, you're like, no, I got this. I've been paying attention. I finally got it. I don't need your help. I got it. I'm telling you, I got it. You can go to bed. You can relax. I got it. And because we're in this sacred space, this is Adullam. God's going to take our inexperience and he's going to blow his grace on and it's going to work in your favor. Any church you lead requires a leader. I oversee, but I don't lead here. That's what Dr. Felicia does and Pastor Mike does. But I do believe this, the most loneliest position in the church is the pastor's wife. But it is possible to be in a room full of people and still feel alone. So I want to do it with you. There's nothing that feels good to a leader than when he can have memories of when people showed up for him when he showed up for them. There's nothing that makes you feel strong when you can say with a shadow of doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, oh, my church loves me. The world may not love me. And when I'm in this cave of Adullam, I feel the love from the 400. I feel the love from the people there. And I want to tell you that 400 is not just a number. I believe you guys are going to exponentially get there when you go to Judah. So I want to admonish you. I'm going to do it with you. I don't know how y'all do it. I know y'all use Cash App, PushPay. But I want us to give to this leader. Now, I know, you may not know. I've seen him drive from here to Pensacola to take care of his parents. I've seen him drive back to preach the word on a Sunday to this congregation. I've seen him show up at the church office and work at 7 a.m. and then leave to go work at Disney in the evening time. Never complain, you'll never find him saying this is too much. He'll just be like, man, I don't know. That's it. That's it. You're not going to get a whole lot. You're not going to get a whole sob story. That's just like, man, how's everything going? Man, it just seemed like just warfare, man. We just got to pray, man. That's all I can say. That's it. You're not going to get anything else. I've seen him stand beside his wife during the most trying times and still yet take care of his 400 distressed, discontented. I've seen him show up for people at funerals. Not the speaker, but just to be present. Just so they can. I've seen him go to hospital rooms. Now, I don't do hospitals. If I come to the hospital, you gonna die. That's the rule at West. If PDSJ come to the hospital, your life is gone. It's you just know the Lord has come to receive you. But I've seen him go to the hospitals. I've seen him mentor people who would never be able to sit at the table. Now it's our turn. Not to give you flowers when you die, but to give them to you while you can see it. I want something simple. I'll give $100 to shoes. Some of you to your eyelashes. Some to your wig. Mani-pedis. But how much more should we be willing to invest in someone who speaks to my soul? Now, I don't know what y'all do. Now, y'all help me because I don't know. I know on PushPay you can put Pastor's Love Gift on it. And then, okay, so is that the one that goes to the pastor, not... Do what now? Okay, so select special offering. Now, he has Cash App, right? Okay, well, what is that? Because some of y'all use Cash App. What is that? Y'all got it back there? Dr. Felicia knows it. She knows. She in the book. She in the Lamb's Book of Life. I want to see how many of you will join me with a gift of 100. I'm going to do it. I want to know if you will be willing to do that. If you are, it's Michael D. Young, 74. $ Michael D. Young, 74. Michael D. as in Douglas, Young, 74. Michael D. as in Douglas, Young, 74. If you're willing to join with me at a gift of 100, would you just wave at me that I might acknowledge you? Thank you so much. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Devin raising his hand. You don't have no money, so I don't know where that ain't gonna work out very well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you are, hey, my dad made it, man, your favorite member. He made it in the back. He's all the way back there. One of your favorite. He's the chairman of your church. You don't even know. If you're willing to give $100, thank you so much. Go directly to him. If you are willing to give anything towards this occasion, 50 or 25, let's try not to do less than 25 if we can. Because here's the reality. We sow, and when we sow, God rewards us because we sowed. That is a fact, that if you sow into leadership, God will in turn return it back to you. Good measure, pressed down, and shaken together. So I don't know if you need envelopes. If you need an envelope, you can get it. Now I'm going to do something unorthodox because I'm the pastor of the church, so I kind of can use my authority as I like. I want to have 2 people come up. Now, this ain't a funeral, so we don't want you going over 2 minutes. Now, I know when people get microphones in their hand, they just go to a whole nother world. They be like, you know, I'm a little shy. And, yeah, I want to talk about, 2 minutes, praise the Lord. When the music starts playing, that means your time is over. I want 2 people to come up, a male or female, to talk about, I like it. You coming? Okay.